So, now we're going to go into the teenage years. I was kind of a closed book as a teenager, starting from 13. I never really associated with a lot of people. I generally would usually keep to myself. I had my little clique of people that I could count on both of my hands that I was rocking with or hanging out with. But I was pretty in particular with the kind of company that I would keep. The trampoline incident that was on India Palm. I was 14 or 15 when the trampoline incident happened. And that really affected my mindset because I thought these people were my friends. I thought these people cared about me, my well-being, just everything thereof. But that day, I had got a rude awakening that they were not for me at all. Middle school, I was in dance. And I think it was one of the funnest activities, or one of the funnest electives that I've had was dance. I wish I remembered my dance teacher's name. All I can know is that she was a blonde woman in her mid-20s, and she was a show doll in college, and she showed us one of her videos of performances that she had done. You know, I wish I would have recorded those sessions in dance class because those are memories that I can never get back. Those are, you know, things that I would have liked to have shown people and said, see, not that I have to prove anything to anybody, but because of all the discretion over the years, I've always felt like I've had to prove myself, or I had to prove this or prove that, or, you know, it's like my word was never good enough. But then again, back in the day, people's word really wasn't creditable because people would lie, or people would fib, or people would tell, you know, these long tangents, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And being genuine, just, it wasn't, it wasn't first nature at all. And, you know, growing up in the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and, you know, kind of lifestyle, and that was my Gen X experience. It was the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and I'd like, to the fullest extent, you know, like I said, they busted their ass and they worked really hard during the weekdays. But once Friday came rolling around, they was ready to party. And boy, they really took it to the hilt. You know, they went all out. And then, of course, not every time, but there would always be like arguments and fist fights and just all that kind of disputing stuff, due to alcohol or their substances that they were on. And I mean, it was entertaining to watch. Some entertainment. But at the same time, it was scary. Things are getting flipped over and, just flying through the house type of situation. But, yeah, middle school, I don't know. As far as the middle school dances, I would say that middle school dances are far more, or were far more interesting and more fun than high school dances were. You can dress the way you want, you don't have to be, dressed out, per se, I guess. And, I remember this one time, this one dance that we had. It was me, Siobhan Ryder, one of my best friends. We have kind of lost touch throughout the years, though, but she's an awesome person. And, we were, and I think Marley, I think we were in the dance room and in the auditorium. Or, no, the cafeteria. It was the cafeteria. I couldn't think of the name. I just woke up like 10 minutes ago. But, Siobhan was trying to twerk. And, I started laughing. And, she looked at me and she's like, what? I'm twerking. And I'm like, So, I sat there and I'm sitting there trying to show her how to twerk. And, I have not realized the gravity of the situation at this point because I'm massively stage fright, as I had said about performing in dance, that I had dropped out 2 weeks before. But, and, I don't know, I could twerk, but I wasn't a pro, wasn't the great at it, but I did know how to shake my ass, but, Siobhan goes, Clara, look. And I'm like, what? And there was a circle around us. They were watching us. And I got really embarrassed. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what are we going to do? She's like, just go with it. We're doing the thing. And then I stopped. I was like, okay, this is just kind of awkward. I'm not used to this. And we just both busted out laughing and we hugged each other and we were just, talking and conversing with people. But that was funny and embarrassing at the same time. Because I have, but I've never really, had a situation like that where, like, we were, like, in a circle and people were surrounding us and they were watching us dance and stuff. And I was a really good dancer. I could fucking dance, but, it was just like, I knew how to twerk. I was good at it, but I wasn't great, But, that was freaking funny and embarrassing at the same time. And then in my head, I'm like, that just happened. Oh, man. We always look back at our past and realize all the stuff that we've done, all the stuff that we've witnessed, heard, all thereof. And sometimes you'll either laugh, sometimes you'll cry. Because sometimes it may be a touching moment or an upsetting moment. Or maybe an exciting moment. Who knows? Of course, with each person it's different. But there was a lot of turmoil in my family. There was a lot of fighting and disputes and hospitalizations, and it was just a very toxic situation, a very toxic lifestyle. They were good people. They are good people, or I haven't spoken to them in years, but they're good people. I'm not going to say they're not. They're not like, Epstein files or Puffy, It's not like that lane, but there was a lot of trauma that came with my past and my upbringing. And it has taken me over 40 years to heal from it. I had an ex. Oh, obviously, everybody has exes. That was a weird way of starting that conversation. But this ex, he was my second boyfriend. We were both like 13. Or, yeah, we were both 13. Or I was 12 and he was 13. Anyways, we had a really, really, really good relationship. I thought, in the beginning, I thought we did, yeah, I think we were both 13. But, he was a different kind of person. And I'm not saying that for, like, usually people, after that, people would have, like, all good to say and this and that. But he was, he's kind of a complicated person to explain. His name is Vincent. VMC is his initials, and I'll leave it at that, because, I don't usually, if I blast names, I never usually give a last, because, I am discreet to a point. Even if I get mad, or sometimes I get petty, and, we're like, fuck you, Daisy D, the recent situation, and I'll get to that. But he was, I didn't know that he was, like what do you call those? Like a terrorist kind of family. I don't know, like, what, label or whatever it is, but, I don't know what the terrorists, I don't know what their cultures are, or not really know anything about them. But anyways, just to give context, I found this out later in life, the first incident was his best friend Paul. And this is kind of embarrassing, but at 13 years old, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You don't know, I didn't know anything about anything when it came to certain things, if you get me. Yeah. So, I was stupid and fucking naive and ignorant and stuff like that, but I don't know. I blame myself. Partially I blame myself, because it's like, how could you put yourself in a kind of situation like that? Like, what is wrong with you? But I don't even know how it happened, how it started, but I know that, like, he had called one day and wanted to hang out, and I was like, yeah, you can come over, we can hang out, we can chill. And my mom was working on the beach side at the nursing home. And somehow, it's part of like the memory glitch that I have. Uh, so I'm trying to remember. I remember that I was laying on my mom's bed, long ways across with the feet over, you know, and his best friend Paul was above my head holding my arms down while he used his finger on his knees, and he was, yeah. So, I felt very violated and humiliated after that. Like, I don't know. It's just, I can't explain it. I'm not gonna try and justify it because I can't. I can't. And then there was another, I always got, like, misused by my boyfriends. And I was fucking stupid to not, I mean, of course, I would say something to them after the fact, or, handle business, as they say, but, partially I was to blame. It's like, how could you even try to put yourself in this situation? And I'm not saying that I did put myself in a situation, but I don't know. For some reason, part of me just feels like, you had a choice, or I don't know, something. But I wasn't educated about a lot of stuff growing up. I really wasn't. We didn't have the talk, if you get me. I really don't think anybody had the talk, with me. And if they did, I think it would have been very weird and morbid because, yeah, no. No. I think that would be a situation where I could do without the talk. But, that was really embarrassing. But, then another incident, I was sitting in a chair in the kitchen, and the same situation with the finger and an ex, and see, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I was curious. I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't have, I got the time gap there of filling in the blanks that I can't fill in. But that's the only thing I can come up with is maybe I got curious, I've never actually been penetrated as a teenager, young teenager, until the Shane thing, with the two girls on the bike, that situation. And then Sean, where he kicked me in the head and stuff, but that was very uneventful. I couldn't feel anything. But I was with Sean for a year and a half or so. And because I mentioned it, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this in my autobiography or not, but I will actually, I'm going to put the trauma survivor videos in my autobiography so that I can have those videos cover those parts. So I don't have to discuss them. I'm going to put those videos in here because it is part of the history of my life, and it is part of the trauma and the stuff that I went through. But it was definitely, there was never a dull moment. There was always something arise in our house or in our family. Something was always going down, or some drama or something. It was just one of those it is what it is types of things. And yeah, that was some embarrassing times of my life for sure. I was never, like growing up, never in my teenage years, I was not a sexual person. It wasn't even in my mindset. It wasn't something I was thinking of, talking about, conversing about. It was almost never in any of my conversations of sex or none of that. The first time that I fully went balls to the wall and really opened up, and done everything, as I would say, is with my husband now. But, high school was pretty treacherous for me. I dropped out in the second semester of 11th grade, which is stupid. But I couldn't take it anymore. I loved school. I loved learning new things. It was my passion. I loved to learn. I loved school. I loved my studies. It was fascinating to me to learn all these things and stuff that you learn in school. History, got art class, and I wasn't in dance or anything in high school. I don't think I was really in any cliques or anything. It was basically just gym, stuff like that. I was in middle school, I was in weightlifting class. It was like this balcony thing that was above the gym. And they had weights and machines up there. And that was interesting. But high school is where all the shit went down. I had this ex John, where we were together off and on, but in one setting we were together for at least a year, and he got so mad because I wouldn't sleep with him. I was high school, so I think I was like 7. No, it's like 16. But he would always drive his bike over to my house. He would have all those like kind of like Mr. T, all the rings on his fingers, and always tried so hard to get me to let him stay the night. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm not sleeping with you. You're not staying in my house. And that was a recurring thing with him. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. No, I don't just, I don't just sleep with people. And it's like, I'm your boyfriend. I'm not just anybody. Like, we're together. We've been together for a year. And I'm just like, you get the feeling like, when somebody's not meant to have something, or that's not the person you want to give it to. I was kind of in that lane. Like, if I did something, it's not, you're not the one that I give my gift to. And that's where I was. And remember in high school one time, and we were close to an extent, but I didn't know he was cheating on me all the time, which every guy I was with before Frank, that was their story. That was their song and dance. But, oh man. I don't know. So, in school one day, it was morning. No, it was lunchtime. And that night before that morning, the day before, I had rode my bike over to his grandma's house because that's where he lived. He lived at his grandma's. And keeps saying that Chris Brown is his cousin, but I don't know about that. John Wick, Chris is not your. Oh my gosh, really? But he swears up and down Chris Brown is his cousin. But that was funny. When I had rode over on his bike, he would meet me in the road, and I actually have images of this as I'm talking about it. And he opened the little black box and he proposed to me. And I said no. Because I was a very smart person. And I knew in my mind, I was like, you're only trying to propose to me so that you could sleep with me. That's a no. Hard no. So then it leads us to the morning after, or the afternoon after, lunchtime, where he proposed to this girl, Bridget Derrick. And of course she said yes. And I was like, really? So of course I broke up with him. Obviously. And that was that situation. But I was always one of his favorite people. One of his favorite people that he's ever dated. He had claimed that he was so in love with me and all this and that. But I'm sorry, if you're really in love with somebody, you're not going to cheat on them. And you're not going to propose to them just so that you can get in their pants. And fighting to try and stay the night at your house and stuff just so they can sleep with you. I was so tired of that repetitive, piggish freaking lane that guys would always want to put themselves in. It was disgusting. It was irritating. And I couldn't stand it. Because it would bring back memories and remind me of family members and how they would treat each other and how they would talk to each other in that kind of mannerism. And no, it was just not my lane. It was not my lane. I was not a sexual person at all. At all. When I got with my husband, I was in that nympho phase, but only with him. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot. But I'm gonna conclude this video. Until the next one.